During the early days of service to King Saul, David and Jonathan, King Saul's son, became the closest of friends. Jonathan loved David as a brother and cared deeply for his future. Unfortunately, the more success David had on the battlefield, the more jealous Saul became. One day, out of sheer hatred, Saul hurled his spear at David, trying to pin him to the wall. Even though David was able to escape, he lived in fear of an attack by King Saul. Saul even devised a plan for Jonathan and his servants to kill David. But when Jonathan reminded his father of all the great things that David had accomplished for the kingdom, he decided not to kill David. When David heard of this plan, his heart was in anguish, and he came before the Lord and cried out in prayer, "Deliver me from my enemies, O God. Protect me from those who rise up against me. Deliver me from evildoers, and save me from bloodthirsty men. O my strength, I watch for you and sing praise to you. O God, you are my fortress, my loving God." The next day, Jonathan came to David, and they came up with a plan to find out if King Saul had still planned on killing David. Jonathan told David, "Go out to the field near us and hide beside the rock known as Azel. Then tonight, when we sit down to eat dinner, and my father sees that your place is empty, he will ask me where you are. And I will tell him you are traveling to visit your family. If he answers well, then I know you will be safe. If he answers in anger, then I will let you know so that you can escape. If the king does not intend to kill you, I will come out to the field and shoot 3 arrows to the side of the rock where you are hiding. I will say to the boy who will fetch the arrows for me, 'Look, the arrows are to the side of the rock. Bring them to me.' If you hear these words, you will know that you are safe from my father's anger. But if my father intends to harm you, I will shoot the arrows far beyond you. And by this you will know that you must leave in order to save your life from my father's wicked plans to kill you." That evening during dinner, King Saul noticed that David was not at his place at the table. When Jonathan told him that David was visiting his family in Bethlehem, Saul became so angry that he hurled his spear at his own son to kill him. Even though the spear missed Jonathan, he knew that his father intended to kill David. The next morning, Jonathan went out to the field with a young boy who would fetch his arrows. Jonathan's heart grieved at having to send David away, but his love for David was so great that he knew he must protect him from his father. Jonathan shot an arrow far beyond the rock where David was hiding, and then sent the young boy to get it. As soon as the boy returned with the arrow, he sent him away, and David came out from behind the rock. As David approached Jonathan, he fell to his knees and bowed before him. Then they embraced as brothers and wept together. They both knew that David would have to escape to save his life. David fled for his life into the wilderness of the hill country and hid among the caves. King Saul continued to search for him, but did not find him. During this time, many men heard where David was hiding and decided to join forces with him. One day, Saul got word that David and his men were hiding in the strongholds of En-Gedi. Saul took 3,000 chosen men from Israel to search for David and his men. During the search, Saul went into the opening of a cave to relieve himself, and David and his men were hiding deep in the cave. When David's men saw King Saul by himself, they said, "This is what the Lord meant when he said to you, 'I will give your enemy into your hands to deal with as you wish.'" Now David's heart was noble, and he would never kill an anointed king. So he quietly crept up behind King Saul and cut off a small piece of his robe. But soon afterward, his heart was bothered by what he had done. Saul left the cave to go on his way. David came out of the cave shortly after Saul left and called to him, "My lord, my king!" When Saul looked behind him, David bowed before him and said, "Today, your eyes have seen that God has given you into my hands, but I had mercy on you and refused to kill you. Look at this piece of your robe that I cut off. You can see that I have no evil plans for your life, even though you continually try to kill me. God, therefore, will be our judge, and he will decide between us. May he see my cause and deliver me from your hand." When Saul saw that it was David, he began to weep and said, "The Lord delivered me into your hand today, and yet you did not kill me when you had the chance. May the Lord therefore reward you with good. I know that someday you will be king over all Israel, So please swear to me that you will not cut off my descendants." David made this promise to King Saul, and then returned to the strongholds in En-gedi, while Saul returned home. A period of time passed, but Saul still had a bitter and jealous heart towards David. Saul heard that David and his men were camped in the wilderness of Ziph, so he took 3,000 of his best men and went to search for David to kill him. When David heard that Saul and his army were camped close to where he and his men were hiding, David and a few of his best warriors snuck into Saul's camp at night. Saul was sleeping on the ground with his spear stuck in the ground beside his head, along with his water jug. The king was safely surrounded by his strongest soldiers, but God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Saul and all his men, and David was able to take Saul's spear and water jug without waking anyone. As they left the camp, David and his men stood on a hill a short distance from the camp, and David yelled down to Saul's men, "What kind of men are you, that you did not guard your king and lord when we came into your camp to destroy him? As you can see, we have the king's spear and water jug that laid beside his head." Saul recognized David's voice and asked, "Is that your voice, David?" David replied, "Yes, it is, my lord the king. Why are you pursuing me again? What have I done against you to deserve this?" Then Saul replied, "I have sinned today and done a foolish thing. Once more, you had the chance to take my life and did not do it." When David heard this, he said, "The Lord will reward each man for his righteousness and faithfulness. The Lord delivered you into my hands today, and I refused to touch his anointed. Therefore, I pray my own life will be highly valued in the sight of the Lord, and he will deliver me from all my troubles." Saul answered, "David, my son, may you be blessed and accomplish great and mighty things." Then they parted, and each went their own way. This was the last time that David would ever hide and fear death from the hand of King Saul. Shortly after, King Saul and 3 of his sons, including Jonathan, were killed near Mount Gilboa during a fierce battle between the Philistines and the Israelites.